Welcome to New Beginnings with Karen Delk, where we celebrate the courage, wisdom, and creativity of people who are creating change. We also honor those who are charting a new path, who are changing a life course, or facing a turning point. And I am so pleased to have with me Ken Dolan-Del. He is a family therapist, an organizational consultant, an author, speaker, and trainer with over 25 years of experience in the arena of personal organization and community empowerment. He's the author of several articles, some with the title of Dismantling White Male Privilege Within Family Therapy, Respect for Human Differences, It Begins with the Truth. And he's here today to talk to us about two books that he's written. One of them is Making Love, Playing Power, Men, Women, and the Rewards of Intimate Justice. And we'll be talking about that book today, as well as his latest book, The Pet Loss Companion. I am so pleased to have Ken Dolan-Del with us. Ken, welcome.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be here.
Yes, I'm very pleased to have you, and I'm looking forward to learning more about both your books. So first we'll begin talking about The Pet Loss Companion. Tell us what led you to write this book.
Well, The Pet Loss Companion is a book for people who have either very recently lost a pet, or sometimes they are making the very difficult decision to euthanize their pet. And it's drawn from the experience that my co-author, Nancy Saxton Lopez, and I have had for a very long time leading pet loss support groups. So we lead a group at St. Hubert's in Madison, New Jersey. Nancy actually started the group, and she's been doing it for more than 20 years.
Wow.
And I've been there for about 12 years. And there isn't a lot of support for people when they lose what is often an extraordinarily important relationship for them. And there are a number of themes that come up at every one of these meetings. And what we wanted to do was to take the experience that people gain through the group and just make it available to a much broader audience. And so that's what we have in the book. We have the kinds of themes that come up over and over and over again. And they are things like, is my grief normal? Is what I'm going through okay, or do I need additional help? Is it okay that this grief is worse, more difficult than any other loss that I've ever had? We hear that a lot.
And I was going to ask you about that because you shared that with us, or with me, when we were talking earlier. Why is that? Why is it that the loss of a pet, in some cases, is more traumatic than the loss of a human loved one?
Well, when we have a pet, they are part of our lives every day in a very, very special kind of intimacy. They are often very physically close to us. They follow us around. We touch them with our hands every day. We are having a very uncomplicated relationship with them. We don't get into arguments. They don't betray us. And we oftentimes, when it comes to the end of their life, we're even engaged in a more intimate fashion. So many times as pets age, we have to do things like prepare special foods for them, maybe even manipulate their body in ways that are therapeutic for them. We have a number of people come to our meetings who have to do things like put water under the skin of their animal, their cat or dog, because they're going through kidney problems. And when you have that kind of care, there's nothing that comes close to that, except maybe when we're caring for an infant, when you're just having to take care of all of these simple bodily needs. And so when we lose that, it's a big part of our everyday experience. So that relationship is extraordinarily important in many people's lives. And you're right, we'll hear people say, when my mother died, or when my father died, it was nothing like this. Well, oftentimes those people aren't part of your household. They're not there every day. They're important. They're very important in your heart, but they're not a part of your everyday routine. So that seems to mark the difference.
And the sadness that comes with that, because I can think of several people who've lost cats and dogs, and it is traumatic. It
Absolutely.
is traumatic.
Absolutely.
And the longer the pet has been with them,
Yep.
The more traumatic it is.
Yep. And that decision to euthanize, too, is so particular to this relationship. And many people, when somebody who's special to us, whether it's a human being or an animal companion, when they die, we often experience guilt. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. What did I miss? What did I not do that maybe I should have done? When we have to make the decision to end their lives, the guilt is often even more pronounced.
Right.
And the thing that's it's so hard to see is that these are people who experience that level of guilt are almost always the people who have gone so far above and beyond. But there's something about making the decision that is just painful beyond all else that many people will struggle with. And so we talk about that a lot. And also we'll talk about how the decision to euthanize, to end your pet's suffering, is different from killing them. You're ending the suffering. Age, a debilitating illness, a terrible injury, those are the causes of death. You're helping them die in a way that is less painful. And it's really an act of love. And so that's some of the kinds of conversations that we have.
Now, are people coming to the group because they've heard about it, they recognize that their grief is so great that they need help? How do they find you, and what are the reasons that they're coming?
They find us most usually either through word of mouth or through St. Hubert's website, where the group is posted. They come from all over, too, because there are very few of these kinds of meetings. And sometimes they're referred by therapists as well. But they come because they're really struggling. They're really struggling. And oftentimes they come because they're not getting support anywhere else. And our society has such a difficult time addressing grief of any sort. So I read research a few years ago that stays with me, and that research found that most people, when they know that somebody close to them has lost any important relationship, whether it's a human family member or a relationship, let's say, the ending of a marriage through divorce, they expect that person will be back to normal in 3 weeks. And that's not the way it works. It takes a lot longer than that for most people. And so right from the beginning, people are feeling like, I don't have the support I need. Maybe there's something wrong with the fact that this matters so much to me. So the need is strong. The need is strong. And there are people who, in fact, come because they don't know how to talk to their children about this, that they're not sure whether they should include their child as they, let's say, move towards the knowledge that their pet is going to die soon. What do we do with that? They want to talk about how do I manage this?
Having a conversation.
How do I have this conversation? What do I do afterwards? Because when we lose a human companion, oftentimes there's a ready-made ritual or process for gathering support, whatever you're going to do with the body. It's prescribed, perhaps by your community of faith. And there's a sense of how I move forward. When we lose a pet, when they're this special to us, none of that's there. We have to kind of make it up. And so that also leaves people often at a loss. And it helps to meet with other people who are going through a similar loss, talk it through, see what you can learn, and also just be validated in the experience, that in the knowledge that this is important.
And you cited earlier that the expectation is when you lose someone close to you that you kind of bounce back in 3 weeks. So how does that work with a pet? And what have you seen? What is their recommendations? In other words, do you go out and get a different pet, the same pet? How soon? How does that work?
It's a great question, and there's so much about grief that's individualized. We know what to expect when it comes to broad strokes. We know that people might very well have a whole range of feelings. And we know that other patterns of daily living are disrupted. Sometimes our sleep is disrupted, or our appetite for food is disrupted, and our ability to concentrate isn't what it might have been before the loss. Those kinds of questions, when do I get another pet? How do I make that decision? Very much have to do with your own temperament, what feels right for you. So some people, they need to go right out, and they need to get another puppy or kitten or horse or guinea pig or what have you, because they need to fill that void in their family. Now, when people feel that way, we'll talk about how that's a new relationship. That's not going to replace the one
that you just lost.
You lost. And so it might give you a wonderful, healthy distraction, welcoming this new member of the family, but you don't want to expect them to fill the void, because they're not going to do that. So, for example, if you bring a puppy into the house, puppies are a lot of work, and you got to be ready for that. So some people will need to bring a new pet into their families right away. Other people, they know that they're not ready. They know that they're not ready. And so the message that we give is, let time be your friend. If you're not sure, then don't rush ahead. There's lots of time for that. And some people just feel like, I have to be near animals. And so we'll say to them, maybe you should volunteer. Maybe you should come to St. Hubert's or another animal shelter and visit the animals who are there for the time being. And maybe you should even foster a pet. But you don't have to make the decision to adopt right now.
Now, I think of, I'm a boomer. I think you're a boomer. And we're going to have more baby boomers who are, reaching older age. Is it recommended that as we go through, divorce or loss of a spouse or a loved one, companion, that perhaps having a pet is healthy? Because I've done some research on this, and the whole fact that you have a pet, someone to love you unconditionally, which is probably why the loss of the pet is so traumatic, because humans usually have some conditions of love. But a pet is unconditional. Are you finding that, or is it recommended that as people begin to age and maybe live alone, or their family is distant, that maybe having a pet is something that helps them?
Well, you're talking to a guy with a lot of bias here.
Okay.
Because I think pets are wonderful. I think it's a wonderful aspect of life to have animals who are close to you. And you're right, there's research that shows things like when you pet a dog, your blood pressure reduces.
Right.
And that owning pets in general reduces a person's experience of stress. And so there's research that supports the health factor and the fact that it's generally good for people. But again, some people would say, well, as we age, it might be more of a challenge to take care of an animal. It might be, we might be having difficulties with our own self-care. And there are people for whom it just doesn't fit their sensibilities to have an animal in their lives. I think it's a good idea. I encourage people to think about it, because there's nothing like having companionship.
Right.
That's a healing part of many people's lives. But again, it depends. But certainly, if you're interested in having a pet, and you've had pets your whole life, I think it's a very valuable thing to explore. At any stage of the life cycle.
Yeah, I know that with veterans, for instance, and those with post-traumatic,
post-traumatic stress disorder,
right? That having a pet and having that interaction helps to reduce their stress level, their level of depression, and that kind of thing. So the health benefits certainly are significant.
Pets teach us to be in the moment. Animals live in the here and now. And so many times human beings are way off into the future or in some way preoccupied with the past. But when you spend time with an animal and you get in sync with their perspective, that brings you to a kind of mindfulness that can be quieting and can help you just experience the moment in a way that is different than when we do when we're left to our own devices, to our own frenetic devices.
I think what you've said is significant and profound, because living in the moment is not what humans do, particularly with all of their devices. So you have the iPad, the smartphone, the cell phone, you name it. You're carrying a lot of devices that are taking you to the future and taking you and distracting you in many ways. And the having the pet that makes you in the here and now and nothing else is a huge, huge benefit.
Yeah, and I have a number of different kinds of animals, and chickens, for example. Chickens are in the here and now. They're doing what they're doing. They're interesting. They're rabbits, dogs, cats. They teach us a different way to be.
Yeah.
See, I'm biased.
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Well, I want to transition to your second book. You certainly touched on the importance of pet loss and the benefits of having a pet. But I'm intrigued by, a book that you really wrote back in 2008.
Right, 2008.
Which was Making Love, Playing Power, Men and Women, and the Rewards of Intimate Justice.
Right.
So what is intimate justice?
Well, intimate justice is a foundation for a relationship in which power is acknowledged and both parties seek to have a relationship in which there's a power balance that's as equal as it can be. And the reason that I focus on power is that in my family therapy training and among my family therapy colleagues and the way that we think about relationships is that the focus shouldn't be so much on communication. There's a lot of emphasis in the field of psychotherapy and counseling on communication. We look at one level down and we say, what happens in terms of communication is determined by the power balance. And also, as a family therapist, I was trained to look at systems, to look at couples, families, work systems, and larger societal systems. And it often helps when you want to look at what I'm talking about, when you want to look at power in relationships, to look outside couple relationships into the larger world. And for example, during the 1970s was the resurgence of the women's movement, the movement for women's rights in this country. And it had come up many times in the past, around the time of women's suffrage in the early part of the last century, but it came up again. And there was this, you would often see very level-looking professional men talking about women as though, why are these women in the streets yelling and screaming? Why are they protesting? Well, the reason that they protested, the reason that they raised their voices collectively, isn't because they don't know how to communicate. It isn't because they can't speak words that are being understood by the power structure, men in power. It's because they weren't being listened to. They weren't being given equal access. That's the same thing that happens within couple relationships. And so, for example, many times men in couple relationships will say, she's nagging me. And what you learn is that she repeats herself because he's not listening. He has the power not to listen. Same thing that you see in all movements for civil rights and for human rights. So you would see the representatives of the police talking about the civil rights movement leaders and their followers, the movement marches, as being unruly and as being uncivil. The same dynamic is there. And in relationships, men tend to, it's changing, and it's changing on a constructive path, but men still tend to have an attitude of privilege, of entitlement, and women tend to still take on more responsibilities, particularly for things that have to do with family life. And this book is really targeting men and trying to help both men and women look at men's experience and look at what we've been taught, what men have been taught about a number of patterns that we show in relationships that cause trouble. And so that's what this book is about. It's about helping men to broaden the ways that we interact with everybody, so that we are more able to participate in an equal fashion within relationships. Now, the most extreme form of misuse of power within relationships is intimate partner abuse.
Of course.
And of course that happens with pandemic frequency. So 31% of women in this country will be physically or sexually attacked by an intimate at one point in their lives. 4 million women a year in this country report being physically attacked by a partner. And the physical is just the most extraordinary expression. And probably those numbers are not anywhere near as big as the reality, because not everybody
reports it.
Not everybody talks about it.
Absolutely. And even you're talking about where they're intimate, so the numbers are even greater just with the interaction between males and females.
Right.
But we also know that there are small numbers where men are also the victim of those power plays.
Yeah, in a heterosexual relationship, about 90 to 95% of the time, the abuse is committed by the man toward the woman. And in the other 5%, or sometimes a bit more than that, it's the man who is the victim or the survivor of abuse.
Right.
Yeah.
So you really are talking about these systems and patterns that are entrenched.
Yeah,
and so it's something that has been going on for some time.
For probably as long as there's been patriarchy.
Yes.
As long as there's been men and women. And it's a long time.
Yeah.
Very long time.
So how do couples balance that? I know this book is really targeted towards men.
Right.
But are there recommendations, advice that you provide that really talk about how to balance that out?
Sure. And I'll just say one more thing that's primarily for men. One of the things that's important for us to consider is our meaning of love, what love means to us. Because we tend to feel that love is a feeling state that exists inside us, in our hearts. And if I say I love you, then that's enough, essentially. Love, though, the way that I like to think about it, is patterns of activity every day. It's paying attention to your partner's needs and wants, anticipating some of them, doing things that always make your partner feel appreciated, make him or her feel that you have their back and that you value them, and that you only touch them in a way that's loving, and that you think about them, you hold them in your thoughts. It also has to do with very simple things like doing the laundry, sharing the chores, like knowing what you need to buy at the grocery store and making a list and doing it. All the very simple activities of living, helping to take care of the kids. And so far as knowing who their friends are, knowing the parents of those friends. Right. So those demonstrating love in that sort of a way is part of what we can all do to create that balance. It also comes to things as practical as money. So that in our society, money is the measure of power. Yes. And so it's important to manage money in ways where both partners feel like they have authority. And if that's not the case, then the power balance is off. And so that's a fundamental measure.
Do you think that's shifting? Because I know that more and more, you have women who are, not only entering the workplace, but have been there and
Yeah.
are rising.
Yeah.
And the Great Recession that we've just gone through, more men were significantly impacted, and maybe women, because they were
Yeah.
not as high in the ranks,
Yeah.
really held things together until
Yeah.
the man could re-enter the workplace. Has that leveled things off, or not really?
I think that we're always moving in a positive direction, and so yeah, women are still making the last
Yes.
research I saw, 77 cents to the dollar
Yes.
that men. Now those are very broad strokes, and as you say, it's very important to look at the meaning of those kinds of statistics in ways that are as complicated as they really are. So, for example, I believe there's research that shows in the African American community it's not so skewed, that women tend to be at a much more level place. And in fact, it's generally the case that in the African American community, women are more likely to be employed
Absolutely.
than men are.
That's absolutely.
Now, in all communities, though, you have to consider that oftentimes, even when women are bringing in more of the money to the household,
The roles haven't changed.
the roles haven't changed, so that still
Yeah.
there might be a deference to the man's authority. Now, that is changing, and it's changing generationally for sure. In the younger generation, there tends to be less of that kind of mindset about the man holds authority and the woman holds responsibility. But sometimes, even in couples who are in their 20s, when you dig a little bit deep, you see things like they tend to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. They tend to hang out more with his friends than with hers. She tends to do more of the planning, even though the planning might be organized around
Them.
his interests.
Right.
And so we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
We're moving in the right direction. I always like to make that comment, because it isn't all doom and gloom.
No.
Not at all.
No.
And my son, who's now 21, I look at him and I look at his generation, and I see people who are more looking beyond the gender binary than their predecessors, who look at gender in ways that are more fluid, who look at sexual orientation in ways that are more fluid and more accepting. All of that speaks volumes about the hopefulness that we can have.
Yeah, and you talked about movements, and certainly there has been more movement in the, in several areas, but in people seeking greater and equal footing from a gender perspective, from an ethnicity and racial perspective, as well as from, sexual orientation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the model of the sexual orientation, that has really just catapulted in many ways, that I think each of these movements contribute to influencing and breaking down some of those barriers that have previously existed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this book is an offering of some ideas, and in fact some exercises, because each of the chapters ends with exercises for men, exercises for women, exercises for couples, to just provide some structure and some possibilities.
Yeah, for the
for
conversation.
trying new things and doing and having a conversation that moves towards that more egalitarian place, and helps men, for example, to be more. A lot about what men are taught is restrictive. It's that we need to hold back our feelings, and there's ways that we can show our connection, and there are ways that we shouldn't, because we should never be anything like a woman. And for the longest time, men were taught not only should you not appear to be anything like a woman, but you certainly shouldn't appear to be anything like a gay man. And so those things are. So this book is a gift to help make some changes and to provide some direction.
That's wonderful. Well, Ken, we are just out of time, but I am so pleased to have you on the show. Ken Dolan-Del, who is a family therapist and currently Vice President of Health and Wellness at Prudential. I am pleased to have him as a guest, and here's his book, Making Love, Playing Power, and then his latest book, Pet Loss Companion. And if you want more, we'll certainly display your information and the credits of the show. I'm Karen Delk, and this is New Beginnings. Thank you for joining us.